Hey, this is Corbin Dauster. I'm live on Kick. Later on, I'll be live on Kick, YouTube, and X. I'm also live on X right now. You can find me at x.com/Corbin Dauster. You can find me on YouTube at Corbin Dauster. You can find me on TikTok, Corbin's Briefs. Instagram at Corbin's_briefs. And that's where all my shorts are going to be. Thanks for joining me today. If you were here live, thank you for being here live. If you're watching this clip later on, thank you for watching the clip. I really appreciate it. Make sure you like and subscribe, and you do all those things so that you find my videos later, because you're definitely going to like it. So that's not even a question. But when you do like it, I want you to find it later. So make sure you subscribe to everything, and you show up and chat with us for all of our live streams. Now, here we go. The first thing we're doing, really, I'm introducing myself. This is my VTuber debut, my PNG Duper debut. I want you to know who I am and what I do. I'm a political moderate. I really like debating. I am also a Trump supporter. I'm a populist in some ways. I'm kind of a socially conservative, fiscally liberal, if that makes sense. Maybe more libertarian. I'm just not a laissez-faire guy economically. So I feel like, I've got a lot of nuanced bro opinions. Nuanced bro opinions. And I'm going to go over them with you. I've got a lot of stuff to get into today, so rather than doing this much longer, I'm just going to move on. First thing we're going to do, I want you to understand me, so we're going to do a political compass test. If you've not heard of this, it's pretty straightforward. It's just going to put us in some range on one of these boxes. We're gonna have authoritarian, libertarian, yada yada yada. So I'm just gonna go through. We're gonna do this test. Let me enhance. All right, perfect. All right, follow along, play along at home if you want to. Here, let me move my big head over. Big head in the way. There we go. That's a little better. There we go. All right. And we lock in. Ooh, oh. Okay. So, I got a squeaky chair. I need to WD-40 this. Test page 1 of 6. Okay, just a few propositions to start with concerning, no less, how you see the country and the world. If economic globalism is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interest of transnational corporations. Strongly agree. Yeah, this is where I'm pretty liberal, or whatever. For me, the entire point of an economic system is to serve the people. Like, without people, none of this matters at all. So I think that's pretty important stuff there. I'm just gonna move on here. I'd always support my country, whether it was right or wrong. I wouldn't say strongly disagree. I would just say disagree, because, well, and we'll kind of get into this a little bit later. Right now, the riots are going on in LA. It's one thing to disagree with what your country is doing. It's another thing to disagree with your country, if that makes sense. It's like, that kind of puts you in a different country, I feel like. If you hate your country that much, just go elsewhere. There's other countries that will take you. It's that simple, I feel like. And America's awesome. There's a reason why people die and get hurt trying to get over here, and it's not because this country sucks, So anyway, let's move on. No one chooses their country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. Strongly disagree. It is not foolish to be proud of it. It's not. I mean, because again, you can move. You can go wherever you want. It's harder for some than it is for others, but it is perfectly fine to be proud of your country. In fact, you probably should be, even if it's not the U.S. Like, all countries have something to be proud of. Most countries have a history that goes back, in some cases, thousands of years. You know, the United States is one of a handful of countries on Earth where it's got roads that are not as old as other countries' roads and buildings and statues and names and stuff like that. But that doesn't mean there's nothing to be proud of. So, like, no matter where you are, there's something to be proud of. There's plenty to like. Unless it's like South Korea, in which case, get the fuck out of there. But yeah, just because it's you're proud of your country because you were born in it, or doesn't mean you're proud of it because you're born in it, is what I'm trying to say. So it's not foolish to be proud of your country. Our race has many superior qualities compared with other races. No, I'm just kidding. This is a joke. I don't think, for me, race is not the issue. It's a culture thing, so I would go strongly disagree. There's really not a lot else to say about that. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. I would say yes, but only for now, right? That's kind of how that works. It's like the enemy of my enemy is my friend today, but tomorrow, when my enemy is gone, I've got another enemy again. So you just gotta stay on your toes there. Let's see. And you know what? It's so funny. Good example of this is the Elon Musk stuff that just happened, where Elon's fighting with Trump. And I got a good tweet to look at a little bit later if you haven't already seen it. So stay tuned to the VOD or the stream, or watch that clip later in a different video. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. Yeah, totally. International law is kind of a joke in general. It doesn't really mean anything. You know, I didn't agree to international law, and many other countries don't agree to international law. Really, it's whoever has the biggest stick defines what international law is, so who cares, right? Unless you've got a tiny stick. The U.S. is a big stick, so I don't really give a fuck what international law says, personally. Like, who cares? There is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. Well, considering what I'm doing right now, I'm gonna have to go with strongly disagree. I'm trying to be entertaining, or I'm, you know, maybe failing at it, but that is the attempt here. And I'm also going to be trying to provide information. And, you know, there are circumstances where that fusion is creating issues, right? Like this one in particular, just an example. But you know, that's not really the point. That's not the fusion of information and entertainment isn't the worrying part. It's who is representing that, I guess. All right, page 2. Now the economy. Here we go. This is where things get interesting. This is all about attitudes. All right, so people are ultimately divided more by class than by nationality. Absolutely. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. Yeah, I agree with that. Because if you can keep inflation, I strongly agree with that. Inflation is a lot more of a scam. Like, I'm very anti-fiat currency, and this is why. Unemployment's another, I would put it as like the second highest issue. But really it only matters insofar as wage growth matters, right? So, you know, there's a lot more you can do with a society that has a high unemployment rate, but the people who are employed are making a lot of money and inflation is very low. You know, that's not that bad. But if people are all employed and wage growth is nothing, there is none, and inflation is insanely high, then it doesn't matter how many people are employed. So it's definitely more important. It's just like at a certain point, you've just got a country of slaves, just pretending like they're not. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. Strongly agree. See, I'm pretty libby, you know, when it comes to this stuff. I do not like the idea of laissez-faire capitalism. If it is cheaper for a corporation to throw shit in the ocean and lakes and rivers that you need to survive, or you want to survive at least, then they're gonna do it. That's just how it works. And you can't be mad at them because they're not people, even though they're legally defined as such. They're a like blobular mass of wealth and wealth strategies. There you go. They're that's all they are. So you have to, this is the kind of regulation that I like. I don't know if I'll have an opportunity to talk about it, but this is also how the oligarchy is created at the same time. This is what the actual oligarchy is regulation. And I'd like to talk about that a little bit, but I want to also finish this test, so we'll get into that. So it can't go too far, otherwise oligarchy, and I'll explain why. From each according to his ability to each according to his need is a fundamentally good idea. No, it's not. It's not. Communism is not based, it is retarded, and if you like communism, I hope you unsubscribe or come on and debate me. I think that you should have your citizenship revoked, and I'm not even just saying that. I genuinely believe that McCarthy did not go far enough. Communism is retarded. We should have genuinely deportations and revoked citizenship for people who are openly communist in this country. It's anti-American, it's anti-human, it's caused more deaths than any other system in the history of the world. I am very, very staunch on this, and the reality is that this may sound good, but that's not how it works, okay? It's just not how it works. It's not each according to his ability, it's each according to his effort, to each according to their output, right? It's like what they do is what they get. And that's the reality. It doesn't matter how you try to package it, what you try to do, the more you try to regulate it, right, out of a system, the worse it gets. And the overwhelming morass of government oversight that's required to even attempt to do this just results in a two-class system of slaves versus fascists. And that's really all it is. Okay, so the freer the market, the freer the people. I mean, kind of, but not really. I don't know. I would go with agree. But I don't really totally agree, right? Like, you shouldn't be able to sell drugs to minors. You shouldn't. There's a lot of things that you shouldn't be able to do, like we talked about before. It's a sad reflection on our society that something as basic as drinking water is now a bottled, branded consumer product. Not really. You know, and there's a few reasons why. I get it. Like, you need drinking water to survive, but also, how is that drinking water produced, right? Are you going out in your backyard and distilling it yourself? No, you're not. A company has dedicated a lot of time and resources into creating massive plants for desalination, distillation, pH controls, all this other stuff. They bottle it and then they sell it at a small profit, and that it's been refined and perfected so much so that there's really not anybody who can't afford water or drinking water. If you look at what most places in America have drinkable water from their sinks, and they're basically paying like a fraction of a penny per gallon for it. All that being said, like, we have issues with our drinking water because of shit that the government's injecting into it. But that's a different problem. That's some dystopian shit. It's not got anything to do with corporations. So, you know, in this area, like, I get it. And you know what else, too? When there's a need, a corporation comes, or a company will come and fill that need oftentimes. You know, it's just, you have to make sure they're doing it in a good way. So I'm sure you've seen these videos, maybe I can find it, of people giving out free water. And the whole thing is that the water bottle and everything is paid for by ads on it. So that's, you know, that's good, right? So this company found a way to give people water for free and still make a profit because they're posting ads on the water. So this is just not true. Let's see. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. Well, how else are you gonna do it? There's just no other way around that. What are you gonna do? Like, what are you gonna do? It can't all be public. That's stupid. I don't even know. Like, what are you gonna do? How are you gonna get out? What are you gonna do? It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to their society. I actually do agree with this. I really do. I think that regrettable is the perfect word, right? Because it shouldn't be illegal, but it's not like good that that's how people make their money. I just think that the most moral way to make money is to contribute positively to society in a way that does more good than bad. And that's really, and by good I mean, to individuals in the society, more positive things come out of it, right? Like, you're not polluting, you're not destroying things, and you're providing a service, and people adore that service, they use that service, they don't get addicted to that service, stuff like that. It's just, that's what I think anyway. Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. I'm gonna go agree, because really you need to be able to protect small businesses, which make up like 70% of our economy, from predatory corporations and private equity funds. So yeah, you do need it. And I also think that tariffs are kind of right too. You do need that as well. You need to protect your country from slave labor wages that exist in other nations as well. And there's ways you do it. I don't know. Well, we could talk about tariffs another time. We could be here all day, but yeah, let's move on. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders. Well, that is the only responsibility of a company, but I don't agree with that. I think that the company should have a moral realm lens to it too. It shouldn't be delivering a profit at the expense of people's well-being, right? Whatever. I know that's vague terminology, but that's what I think. The rich are taxed too highly. Well, I haven't looked at the tax code in probably a little too long. But the last time I did, the top two brackets for taxes were like 41% and 43% of your taxes getting taken out, and the difference was like less than 30 grand, and we're talking about 400,000s a year, right? So if you make 400,000, you're getting taxed at 41%, and if you make 450,000, you're getting taxed at 43%. And taking anything more than 25%, really even 25% of your earnings is fucking insane. And how anybody could think about that in any other way or any other like realm than that is really beyond me. I'm okay with taxes. I think that a flat tax rate is fine. You'll make it up on the back end, but in other ways. But nobody should be taxed that high, And if you're gonna have a progressive tax system, so for me, the best tax system would be 15% across the board, and if you make less than, well, I would have said 7 years ago, I would have said 25,000, but now I would say probably 30,000 a year, then you don't pay any taxes at all. I think that would be fair. And then you can make that money back in other ways, right? Like if you are subsidizing private business or corporations, they're required to give a percentage more of their revenue into taxes because of the subsidization that they receive, and it's like it would be a specific fractional chart, you can look at and say, okay, we received X amount of dollars, so 70% of this over the course of this period of time we have to pay back, like a loan. I think that would be a good way to do it. I think that we provide protection to the entire world to allow for free trade, and I think by doing that, we should be getting a return for that. So my proposal is, if you want to partake in free trade in the world that is protected by the United States ridiculous Navy, then you have to pay us a 1% like tax or tariff on every good shipped through these protected trade routes. That's my opinion. I don't know, maybe you disagree, but I think that would add, I think, about $1 trillion. Last time I did the math, it would add about $1 trillion to our income as a country, and it's deserved. It wouldn't cost the other countries a whole lot, really, if you think about it. 1% really isn't that much if you're, just moving goods, but altogether, because the whole world uses our protected trade ways, this would be a really great way to make some extra money. And we've been doing it for the longest time. Like, we've always done that. That's always what we've done as a country. We never asked for anything. That's why the Marines exist, is because of the Barbary Wars and all that. So I guess the answer is yes. If the rich have a little bit more income, they can pour more of it into creating more things in the country. And theoretically, if you go off of the other things I said about regulating immorality out of the economic system, then they should be creating good things. Those with the ability to pay should have access to higher standards of medical care. This is a really tough one for me, because for me, it's like, on the one hand, the people with a lot of wealth paying for these obscure, high income only available medical care services is actually reducing the price of those services over periods of time, because people who otherwise couldn't afford it or wouldn't have the option to use it will eventually get that by them reducing the price over time. But the problem is that we have regulated and subsidized and just poisoned the well so much on how the medical system works that, like, you almost have to be like, no, we need to, like, totally reset everything. Medical care is largely fucked up by insurance companies and the federal government in this country. That's the reason why everything is so expensive, and there's not a lot you can do about it except take those two things out of the equation. If you're currently, right now, uninsured, you will pay less for your medical care, and healthy. You'll pay less for all of your medical care by paying out of pocket than anybody with insurance will. That's just how it is. So I guess I don't know how to answer this. I would say, like, I could go either way, really. But in the interest of having cheaper medical care over time, I'll say agree. But for me, the way it should be is it should be like 10% higher than the average, which should be like 100 or 700% lower than what it is. Like, the average for all medical care should be about 700% lower than what it is right now. And then the higher standards of medical care should be like 10 to 30% higher than what that average would be. So, agree, but with many caveats. Government should penalize businesses that mislead the public. Yes, absolutely. This is what I'm talking about. I am very pro moral regulation of companies, because they're not capable of demonstrating a genuine moral lens. They're not individuals. As much as they need to be labeled individuals under the law for many different reasons, they are not. So they need to be regulated in these types of ways. I think that another way you could do it is tax benefits, right? So you can say, if you're doing something bad, you pay more money, and the money should be a massive percentage based on revenue, and or gross profit, not revenue, gross profit. That way you're taking directly from the leadership who are making these decisions, because that's how they get paid. And then on the other side of that, if a company is doing things that the government wants them to do, like that the government's encouraging them to do, they get tax benefits for doing that, where they're not paying as much in taxes. So like, what would be a good example? The government needs more Pizza Huts in Oklahoma. So if you build a Pizza Hut in Oklahoma, then you're paying a fraction of the taxes as anyone else. But if you build a Chick-fil-A in Oklahoma, now you've got to pay an extra percentage of taxes. You know, it would all be kind of dependent on what was needed at the time, and obviously Pizza Hut and Chick-fil-A aren't the kind of thing that you should be messing with like that, but it's just the first thing that came to mind. Probably wells would be a better example, like water wells or something. So yes, I strongly agree. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator multinationals to create monopolies. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's not a free market if someone has a leg up and they're taking advantage of you. If somebody is playing banker at the Monopoly table and every other turn they're just taking money out of the bank and you can't stop them, then it's not a fair game of Monopoly, right? And so that's just not how it works. You need to also prevent monopolies from existing. I think that's fair too. Oh my god, we're only on page 3. I'm yapping like crazy over here. I'm doing too much yapping. Oh my god. Hang on one second. I'm gonna use the restroom, okay? So let me just take a quick break. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, had to use the pee-pee. Had to use the wiener. Okay, let's get right back to it. Now let's take a look at some of my social values. Abortion, when the woman's life is not threatened, should always be illegal. Yeah, strongly agree. I strongly agree. I'm very pro-life. In fact, I spent most of my life pretty pro-choice. But there was a few things I learned and a few things I found out about, like, what I believed. So, like, for instance, a lot of pro-choice advocates will say not just life of the mother and rape and incest, but they'll also say things like, well, you should be able to get an ectopic pregnancy aborted. Well, that's bullshit, because an ectopic pregnancy is by definition not alive and can't be aborted. Okay? Look at that. It's a dead a fertilized egg implants and grows outside the main cavity of the uterus. So it never actually happened, right? And if you look at the definition of abortion, it is the deliberate termination of a human pregnancy. Okay? So you're not terminating the pregnancy. You're removing an ectopic fetus, a non-viable fetus. It's not the same. So that's not an abortion. So we can't count that. Honestly, I don't even know if I'm for the rape and incest restrictions either being lifted, because bad thing happens doesn't mean you get to murder a human being. Now, the only one I would say that I think is fair is if the woman's life is on the line. It should be up to her in that case. And part of the reason why I think that is because most mothers would probably choose to sacrifice their life for the baby. You know, I don't know. I know that that's going to be one of those things that people are going to really flame me for, and it would take an entire stream to really get into the weeds on all the reasons why I believe what I do about that. But for now, that is where I'm at, guys. That is where I'm at. Don't forget that I just spent 20 minutes talking shit about laissez-faire economics before you come out and call me a right-wing Nazi fascist grifter. So just hang on to that. All authority should be questioned. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I really reject the idea of calling myself MAGA, even though, like, I did vote for Trump and I do support most of his beliefs, or I shouldn't say beliefs, most of his positions. And the reason I do is because he's the most moderate president in my entire life. It's just that the entire liberal left wing has moved so far to the left that anything to the right of Stalin is Hitler to them. So in reality, if you look at it on as far as actual principles and policy positions, Donald Trump is in fact one of the most moderate presidents in American history. Like, he was the first president in American history to be pro-gay rights when he was elected. He's a pro-choice, pro-gay rights, quote-unquote Republican president who was a Democrat for his entire life, whose entire office is filled with Democrats. Tulsi Gabbard, RFK. So, you know. But that's not the point. The point is, if he did something out of pocket, I'm not cool with it. I'm going to say something. I really am. I don't give a fuck. I said, what was it just the other day? I bet you I could find it. Hold on. Got a tweet here somewhere. Let me find it here. I don't usually use desktop version, forgive me. So, where was it? Okay, yeah, here we go. President Trump announces he will be supporting legislation to jail people for mandatory 1 year for burning the American flag. That is fucking retarded. That's not how this works. That's not how this country works at all. You might be able to give people a fine or even light jail time for a couple of weeks for potentially starting a fire in public, right? That could be something you could do, but it's got nothing to do with the flag. You can't fucking do that. It is a plain violation of freedom of speech, okay? Another example was just the other day. Here we go. Trump dropping China tariffs makes him a bitch. I agree with the Democrats. I do, genuinely. The tariffs were good, and he should have kept them. Yeah. So anyway, the point is that if I don't agree, I'm not going to agree. And if I disagree, I'm not going to just agree because I want that person to get elected. It's not how I work. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. No, that's kind of stupid. Especially for the government. You want the government to be way restricted, right? I am totally anti-death penalty because the government fucks up too much to be given that responsibility. I think that even in the cases of treason, exile is a better option. So that's what I believe. I think that instead of the death penalty, you should be doing exile. And I've been saying that for years, not when Tim Pool said it a few months ago. Okay, I've been saying that for years. In fact, you can check on my X. You can look back to the first time I ever called for exile in place of the death penalty, and you can compare it to when Tim talked about it, which was like a week later, because I'm prophetic when it comes to that weird shit. I also called Pam Bondi totally shirking her responsibilities as far as the Epstein stuff is concerned. I hated her as a pick. I was super duper loud about it. I knew she would be bad. I grew up in Florida at the same time she was there, and she hid the Epstein files for years. Like, she's the entire reason why we didn't find out about any of this stuff publicly, and it was all a conspiracy theory for almost 2 decades. It was her fault. So when he picked her, I was pretty upset about that. I'll be honest. I really liked Matt Gaetz. I met him personally. I really wanted Matt Gaetz, but that's all right. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theaters or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. That's a tough one for me, guys. I'm not gonna lie, because I do think culture is important. I think culture is important, but the concern is that if taxpayers are paying for it, that means that government is running it, and the government sucks at everything as a rule, right? If you start there, you'll usually come to the right conclusion by the end. So I don't know, man. That's really tough to say. I'm not gonna lie. I'll go with lightly agree. Let's say this. If taxpayers are propping it up by them being tax free, then I'm okay with that. Do it the same as churches. They don't pay taxes. You know, if they're like cultural monuments and stuff like that, like the Smithsonian or whatever, no taxes, but also no tax dollars, okay? No property taxes, all that stuff, but no tax dollars. Schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. Yeah, I agree. It's not really up to them. It's a parental responsibility thing. If I want to homeschool my kid, I'm going to homeschool my kid, and at that point, what do you have to do with it? You don't have shit to do with it. You know, if me and my kid want to go to excuse me. If me and my kid want to go to Busch Gardens today and say fuck your stupid math class, then we're just going to go. I mean, it's none of your fucking business, really, at all. So all people have their rights, but it is better for all of us that different sorts of people should keep to their own kind. Holy shit. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna go with unless those people are communists, which is different. Because but communists aren't people, so that doesn't count. Different sorts of people should keep to their own kind. No. I want to say strongly disagree, but I can think of some types of people that should stay with their own kind, like prisoners. You know what I mean? Like, there's always like an exception to the rule, but I'm gonna go strongly because I feel like this is about racial stuff, and I mean, it doesn't say that. Maybe I'll just go with this. There's some circumstances where people should stick to their own, but it's stuff like class stuff. No, that's not even accurate either. I wouldn't even say class. No, you know what? I'm out. I've talked myself out of it. It's like prisoners and communists, and that's it. Other than that, it's stupid. Good parents sometimes have to spank their children. Look, I don't have kids yet. I'm tempted to say agree, but I don't know. I've seen a lot of studies talking about how it's not really super effective. I think that it depends on what you mean by spank, though, because a lot of these studies I feel like are talking about like whacking good, you know, full-blown real spanks. But I don't think you need to do that. Like, especially if the kid's young, these little love taps where you're like, hey, you're hurting me, and I want you to know that I don't appreciate that. Like, that's plenty good enough. You don't need to beat the shit out of them or anything. I don't know. I'm gonna go light agree, but I could really kind of go either way. I really don't know what the right move is here, and I certainly wouldn't bend a kid over my kid. over my knee and spank the shit out of them or anything like that. If I was gonna quote unquote spank a child of mine, it would be like a feather-light tap on the butt to be like, hey, correct that behavior. But also, like they say that a good father never has to hit their kids because they just know off of a look that they're fucking up. So I'd like to be that kind of father where I don't have to do that stuff because I'm taken seriously enough and respected enough to where it doesn't, there's no issues. You know, they know that they don't want to cross me, and they don't want to cross me because they love me, right? Like, I'm a good father to them, and that's why they don't want to do it, not because they're gonna get in trouble. It's natural for children to keep some secrets from their parents. Yeah, I think that's true, you know. Like, in Superbad, the kid who was drawing dicks in his book, like, that, you should have probably kept that to yourself. I wouldn't want my mom to see that if it was me doing that. Little stuff, I think, yeah. I don't, like I was saying a minute ago, I'd like to be the kind of parent where my children don't feel the need to keep any secrets from me, but that's just not realistic. There's gonna be a daughter who's afraid to tell me she has a boyfriend, or a son who doesn't want to explain that he got in a fight at school, and I think that's natural, which is the question, so we'll move on. Possessing marijuana for personal use should not be a criminal offense. Strongly agree. I don't believe in victimless crimes, so all drugs should be legalized and lightly regulated by the federal government in order to prevent contaminants like fentanyl. If someone wants to do fentanyl, they should know they're getting fentanyl so they know how much to take. And then in place of all the money we spent, or wasted, I should say, on the drug war, we should instead be offering counseling to help people break away from addictions to drugs. But you should be able to go to the drugstore and buy the marijuana, and you should be able to go to the drugstore and buy even the heroin, right? As long as you're above the age of like 26, I would say. So yeah, that's my opinion on that. Like I told you, I'm a real moderate. No death penalty, pro-life, pro-legalization of all drugs. Let's see, the prime function of schooling should be to equip future generation to find jobs. No, I don't think so. Jobs, entry-level jobs, are meant to equip the future generation to find further jobs, right? That's what entry-level jobs are for. Schooling is not for that. Schooling is for an education, generally generalized. I think that there's like, I'm assuming we're talking about like high school and below here and not college. If it said college, I would agree. It's not even jobs though. It's something different. It's not, this is the problem I think I have, right? If it was careers, I'd feel a little better about it, but that's not really the point. It's to equip the future generation with skills, right? With skills, in some cases specialized skills. So I'm gonna go strongly disagree. It's not about jobs. It's about skill building. That's what it's about. You should be able to do the things that the world needs, and sometimes you need to be educated on it. People with serious inheritable disabilities should not be allowed to reproduce. Wow. Yeah, I'm gonna go disagree on that one. I can see the argument, but you can't, the shouldn't be allowed is the problem. I think that it would be fine if you said should be encouraged not to reproduce. I often encourage people on X not to reproduce or continue living. But that's a different thing. So the most important thing for children to learn is to accept discipline. It's really important, man. It's really important. And I'm telling you that as somebody who didn't have like hardly any discipline growing up. Developing discipline as an adult, as a skill, is really hard. It's really hard to do. And not being disciplined can ruin your fucking life. It can really quick. It's like not cute to be procrastinating everything until the last second, especially when it comes at the cost of your happiness and ability to improve your life, right? So it's a big problem. I think I'd have to go strongly agree. Important thing for a child is discipline. I think that a lot of things come second to discipline. It may not be the most important, but a lot of things come after discipline on the list. So it's definitely up there. There are no savage and civilized people. There are only different cultures. This is essentially asking, are some cultures better than others? And I agree with that. There are some cultures that are better than others, but that would be disagree in this instance because of the wording. There are cultures that are better than others. Look, a culture that throws gay people and women or gay people off of roofs and regularly has child sex slaves, like, that is a bad culture. It is wrong. It's morally wrong. And that morality is derived from God. I think that's just correct. There are some bad cultures. It doesn't mean that it's not a race thing, it's a culture thing like we talked about before, but there are some bad cultures. Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not accept or expect society's support. Yeah. If you're able to work and you're just not, then what are you doing? I work way too hard. I work way too hard to be dishing anything out to anybody. I'm not going to support anybody if they could have worked and refused to. This is the ridiculous part. It's not the rest of it. I don't mind safety nets and stuff, but that's just ridiculous. When you're troubled, it's better not to think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things. I think it depends on the kind of trouble. You know, if it's something like I stubbed my toe or something like that, then I definitely agree. You know, being positive, I think, has a genuinely better effect on your life. And personally, I try to practice this. I try to practice accepting and rejecting thoughts, right? So if things are going poorly and I am not holding up together well, I start to reject negative thoughts and I try to actively think of positive thoughts. And when I do, I accept those thoughts. I gotta tell you, it really makes a big difference in your outlook. Your ability to handle things, the big troubles that affect you when you are a more positive person, is just better. So I'm gonna actually go strongly agree. Obviously, there's some things like you're meant to be depressed about, like if a family member dies or you get in a breakup. There is no shame in being depressed or sad about those things and for a period of time, but it is better for you overall and in pretty much every other way to be trying to be as positive as possible. First generation immigrants can never fully be integrated within their new country. No, I totally disagree. I think the boomer, like pre-boomer generation, I don't remember, what is that, the greatest generation or something, that came here, immigrated here, where they told their kids, do not speak the other language, only speak English and figure it out, and all this stuff it's important that, like, no, you can. I think that you can. And I would be for more legal immigration if legal immigrants were only speaking English, were participating in culture and integrating into American communities, but that's not what they do anymore. They segregate themselves into like their home country's cultures and then never learn the language even though it's been 10 years. My stepmother is a good example of that. Not her, but her mother before she passed away. She lived here for more than 30 years, I think. Maybe more than like 25 years. And never learned English. the entire time she was here. Never even tried it, and I don't understand that. I don't get how you could do that. I don't even like to visit other nations without knowing how to at least get around in their language, you know? Like, how are you going to move to a whole new country and not even attempt, like, you have to be trying to not learn English if you've lived here for 30 years and can't speak any English at all. That takes effort to not do. Because just by virtue of being around all that English, you're going to pick up on some of it at least. Like, if she had a thick accent, that would be one thing. But she didn't even try. And that, for me, is, like, insanity. I don't get it at all. It kind of pisses me off, actually. I remember one time when I was a kid, she was watching over my little brothers, and I was, like, 17, so she wasn't watching me, but I was home. My little brothers are way younger than me. And she's banging on a door in the house and screaming and yelling. And I'm like, and in Spanish, because I couldn't understand her. And at one point she starts yelling and screaming at me. And I'm just like, I have no idea what you're saying. So I just kind of walked away. I didn't see what the issue was. And I get a call from my stepmom who's flipping out at me because I'm not listening to her. And I'm like, I'm like, do you realize she's not speaking any English at fucking all? At all? Like, what am I in trouble for? Like, what? What? If I start yelling at you in Hungarian, are you gonna be able to follow along all of a sudden because I'm mad? That's not how it works. Anyway, let's move on. What's good for the most successful corporations is always ultimately good for all of us. No, it's not. Not always. And honestly, not often, right? Like, think about all those small businesses that people used to live off of and do well and take care of their families with before Amazon came a thing, right? Like, that doesn't mean Amazon shouldn't be a thing, and it is good for society that you can get your boner lubrication juice in the mail in less than 24 hours wherever you are in the world. Like, that's good, I guess. But the point is, what's the cost, right? It's a cost benefit analysis, and more people were benefiting from, like, you used to having a local community of stores and companies was better for everybody. Because if you were having a rough month, a person that you know at your local butcher shop might be able to help you. But if you're having a bad month and you need something off of Amazon to, like, survive, they don't give a fuck, right? The Indian who's getting paid minimum wage in India, who's answering your phone call, doesn't fucking care that it's been a bad month and you need an extra, like, 3 weeks to pay your electric bill. And even if they did care, the corporate structure is such that they couldn't give you the extra time because the system itself won't allow them to, right? But back when I was a kid, my parents used to be able to call and talk to Cindy, who went to her church, and Cindy would be able to go ahead and be like, okay, look, you know, I talked to the boss, and, you know, I know you guys, and I know you'll pay, and you've been paying, blah, 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 so just do your best to get caught up, and blah, blah, blah. We won't shut your internet, your whatever off. Like, that's not a thing anymore. You can't have those conversations with individuals. Nobody fucking cares. There's no payment extensions for the poor anymore. That used to be something people could do to be able to handle their bills, but now it's not a thing, and it's because of successful quote-unquote corporations. This is why a lot of this stuff is bad for society. You need to have communities that are strong and with successful businesses. Communities. Not countries. You shouldn't have corporations the size of a small city states. Okay? Or nation states. No broadcasting institution, however independent, its content should receive public funding. Strongly agree. I think it's the antithesis to the freedom of speech to be funding any broadcasting institution. Okay, I was hoping we would get through this a little quicker, but I've been ranting my head off, so we're still only on page 4. Let's see if this one's a little easier or a little quicker. Our civil liberties. Oh, I need a ship of my alcohol. Our civil liberties are being excessively curbed in the name of counterterrorism. Yeah, Patriot Act needs to go. A significant advantage of a one-party state is that it avoids all arguments that delay progress in a democratic political system. That's an interesting question. A lot of quote-unquote progress that governments make is actually regress. So I'm gonna go with disagree. I think that the better, well, it is an advantage though. It's not asking me which one's better. Hold on, let's think this through. I mean, it is a significant advantage, but for who, right? I'm going to keep strongly disagree because I think that the point is that how I see the wider society. Because of what matters in the wider society, excuse me, burping. I'm a burping Billy today. I'm drinking alcohol probably is why. Vodka seltzers make you burp. Who knew? High Noon, looking for that sponsorship, bro. Just saying, whenever you're ready. A significant advantage of the one-party state is that... So I think that the whole point, the wider society, what benefits the wider society is what benefits the smallest sections of the wider society, right? So, like, I want to decentralize everything down to the smallest feasible group because that's the most liberty-focused way of benefiting the most people, right? So, like, if it was up to me, states' rights would be brought all the way down to, like, the community level. No more than, like, 160 people, which would align with the Dunbar number. And so because of that, I would say strongly disagree still. You need to have, like, tens of thousands. You need to have 160 divided by the population of the country. That many political systems. That's what you need. Or political parties, I should say, in order to have the most fair society. Although the electronic age makes official surveillance easier, only wrongdoers need to be worried. No, because a wrongdoer, this is the government, again, like a wrongdoer today or a good doer today is a wrongdoer tomorrow, so no. Plus, even if, it's not about being worried, that's not the issue. It's about not having to think about someone spying on you, you know, and the fact that you do have a right to privacy in many situations. Like, if you're in public, I think that I would agree with this, but, you know, that's not I don't get that connotation from this. I think it's talking about NSA shit, and the NSA should be almost entirely abolished or require FISA warrants in order to spy on civilians. Again, going back to the fucking, Patriot Act shit. It's just ridiculous. The death penalty should be an option for the most serious crimes. Strongly disagree. I already talked about this. Totally anti-death penalty. Instead, we should be opting for exile. I'd like to bring back exile. I think exile is pretty cool. Exiled class in Elden Ring is the right class to pick. That's the one. In a civilized society, one must always have people above to be obeyed and people below to be commanded. I think it's the other way around, actually. And And I don't feel like I need to elaborate on that at all. It's just the exact opposite. The people above need to be commanded, and the people below need to be obeyed. It's the absolute opposite. Abstract art that doesn't represent anything shouldn't be considered art at all. Okay, so... oh, man, why did it have to do this to me? Man, I actually strongly agree with this, because I do think that art is actually objective, right? Like good art being good or bad is an objective measure. And I know that a lot of people are going to disagree with that, but there's a lot of reasons why I think that, but we're taking way too long on this test, and I've got so much stuff I want to cover that we might not make it through at this rate. But what I would say is the TLDR version is we've evolved biologically to like and dislike certain things. There's the imprint of God in our very biology and genetic code. The things that people find to be good art are generally found to be good art across people. And that's an indicator that there is something on the soul or physical level that's dictating to us what art is good and what art is not. And symbolically speaking, or everything in our belief structures is symbolically based, and symbolic bases come from evolutionary biology. Okay, so that's like the TLDR version, and it was still fucking long. So in criminal justice, punishment should be more important than rehabilitation. No, it's the exact opposite of that. Rehabilitation is the point. In a proper justice system, people would have all of their rights returned to them after they left, including the right to vote and carry firearms and all that stuff. We just don't give a fuck, so we don't do it right. Thanks a lot, Reagan, piece of shit. It is a waste of time to try to rehabilitate some criminals. Oh, man, I know that I just said this, but at the same time, I also kind of believe that this is true. There's some people who are just fucking broken, and it doesn't, and there's never been a single pedophile that was made into not a pedophile anymore, but there are pedophiles who have been rehabilitated to where they no longer act on it. But you can't unpedophile a pedophile. Once it's done, it's done. And there's been a lot of studies on this. So, on the one hand, I agree, but I still don't think that the right solution is to punish them until they die. I think that probably the right solution here is to study them until we can until we learn enough to be able to rehabilitate them. So I'm gonna go agree, kinda, right? Like, that's where I'm at there. The business person and the manufacturer are more important than the writer and the artist. No, not at all. The writer and the artist are just as important. People need to thrive. This is the survive, and this is the thrive, right? You need to do both. Mothers may have careers, but their first duty is to be homemakers. I wouldn't say homemakers, I would say mothers. Their first duty is to be mothers. So I think that's kind of what they mean here. So I'm going to go strongly agree. I don't think most women really want to have careers. I think they've been forced to have careers or tricked to have careers, and that if they could just receive everything they've ever wanted and stay home and decorate and embroider and take care of children, that they would be happier. I think that that's what they actually want. So I'm just gonna go strongly agree here. See, I'm weird as hell. Y'all probably have never met somebody like me. You guys are trying so hard, I bet, to be like, oh, look at this conservative filth. It's like, nah, man, you're not gonna be able to do that with me. Not gonna be able to. Almost all politicians promise economic growth, but we should heed the warnings of climate science that growth is detrimental to our efforts to curb global warming. Okay, so here's the thing with this. It's not global warming, it's climate change. Climate change is real, global warming has basically been debunked. There's a combination of many things, but mostly changes in the poles, sun cycles, etc., that cause climate change. You can't hamstring the economy for the sake of the climate unless it's in regards to pollution. Okay? That's kind of my thing. Pollution is detrimental to humans. Prevent it at all costs. But having oil and power is also detrimental to mankind, right? So you need to make sure get you a government that can do both. I think that if climate activists really cared about climate activism, they would be calling for nuclear power, and they're not. So I'm calling bullshit on all of them. It's a big fucking grift that's been going on for a long time and makes a lot of money. So that's kind of my opinion on that. If the entire world moved to nuclear power, it's not like I would be against that. That would be good. That would be a good thing for everybody. It's clean. It's safe. There's a lot of power involved. I mean, that would just be the right way to do it. So I don't like smog. I don't like, gross shit in the air. But most of the actual changes in our temperature are because the pole is shifting right before our eyes, and because the sun has cycles. So that makes up for the large amount of it. And in fact, if the idea that the carbon levels was doing anything to the planet in a really severe way long term was true, then what it would actually be happening is it's fending off a ice age. So that's a good thing. So I'm gonna go disagree here. I'm gonna go kind of strongly disagree, because specifically climate science, it's so bought and paid for, dude. It's just so bought and paid. I'm like so out on all that. Clean things up, clean the plastics, clean the rivers. I want a beautiful, RFK said something in a speech that made me cry like right when the election was happening in November, or right before November. He said, in my opinion, God makes himself seen in nature, right? And so this is why that matters. It's not about all this other bullshit. It's about protecting God's beautiful creation without sacrificing humanity's flourishing, right? That's what the point is here. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. I kind of agree. You can definitely go too far anti-establishment. It doesn't help you anymore at a certain point. Okay. Astrology accurately explains many things. This is... Okay, so the answer is yes, kind of, in my opinion, but it's not the way that you think. Like, if I type in my horoscope for today, it's not going to do or mean anything. But if I look at my actual chart with all of the things in mind, I've found it actually does a pretty good job of giving a pretty specific overview of people. I've looked at people's charts and been able to be like, hey, did you have issues with this or that or the other? And that's probably TMI, but yeah, I mean, I would say, like, to the vast majority of people, that astrology is bullshit, to be honest. Like, to the vast majority of people. If you're Googling your astrological thing for the day, I would say that's probably horse shit. whatever it says, but if you actually are diving into it, it's pretty cool. It's pretty interesting, and it's pretty detailed. It's not just a bunch of general things. It can be pretty detailed. I'm not really going to get into it any further than that. I already look like a lunatic, so we'll move on. You cannot be moral without being religious. Well, you can. It's just not like useful. It's like moral relativism, basically, which isn't really moral at all. So I guess I would agree then. Charity is better than Social Security as a means of helping the genuinely disadvantaged. I would... This is tough, honestly, because having money directly is good, but Social Security is a total scam. It's been used to fuck a lot of stuff up. And the problem is, though, that charity is also a fucking scam. That's the issue. I think that the way to fix this one right here, very simply, the reason why churches are tax exempt is because they were the charity organization of the local community, right? So like my biggest thing culturally that I advocate for is the return of the local community, which really doesn't exist anymore. So I think that if a church isn't being shown to provide material aid back to its community, that it should have its tax exemption be revoked. And that would return charities to the way that they should be and make me agree with it, right? So it's like everything is like, yeah, I would agree, but big caveat, it's all fucked up right now. Social Security is objectively a worse system than charity, as long as charity is operating the way that it was intended to. The problem is that you've got things like the Susan G. Komen Breast Cancer Awareness Foundation, which spends $0 and 0 cents on individuals with breast cancer or breast cancer research. All of its money is spent advertising itself as a charity. That's its only purpose, because it's an awareness charity. So if you didn't already know this, which you probably do, the whole point is they take your money so that they can spend it on marketing themselves, so that they can take more people's money. That's all that is, and that's a lot of charities, right? And they pay 80 to 90% of what they take in to the top 5 to 7 people in the company anyway, because everyone else is doing it for community service hours. So it's the biggest scam ever. And if you want to make a lot of money doing nothing, then start a charity, especially a climate charity. Alright, so some people are naturally unlucky. This is a great question, because the implication is that it doesn't matter how hard they work, right? That's kind of the implication. And I kind of disagree with that. I think it's got a lot to do with mindset. I think that your own mindset can make you unlucky. Right? And so that's not that is natural, but that's why I'm going semi-disagree, not strongly, because yeah, I think I've explained enough. It is important that my child's school instills religious values. No, it's not. A school is not for that. That's what your job is as a parent, and you should be doing that, but that's not what the school's for. Yeah, it shouldn't be denouncing them either, but, yeah. Finally, a look at sex. Okay, this is where I'm gonna get really conservative on y'all, alright? And I'm not even gonna explain a lot of this. Sex outside marriage is usually immoral, yes. A same-sex couple in a stable, loving relationship should not be excluded from the possibility of child adoption. Disagree. Yeah, I know. Let me explain this one a little bit more. I say immoral because a large part of morality is how it's affecting the world as a whole, right? If you look at your ancestry chart, you'll find that you've got twice as many female ancestors as you do male. That's because 1% of the men get the majority of the women unless you're in a culturally enforced monogamous system, right? So, like, monogamy is important. Culturally enforced monogamy is also important. God said to wait until marriage, don't become adulterers. And I think he's right on that one. You know what I'm saying? So, don't know what else to say about that, really. Same-sex couple in a stable but loving relationship. The problem with this is, like, it depends whether you're talking about lesbian or gay. I kind of go off statistics for this. Same-sex stuff has become a lot weirder for me lately, because for most of my life I believed the gay gene myth, which it is a myth. I was debating with somebody a few months ago, and I brought it up, and they were like, the gay gene's not a thing. And I looked it up, and it was quietly debunked like a year or two ago. So now I don't really even know what to think about it. But what I do know is that a child needs to have an example of what it is to have a mother and what it is to have a father. And a same-sex couple is incapable of providing that example in either scenario, right? That's just how it works. Although I can appreciate the loving relationship and adoption and all that other stuff. I don't know. I just slightly disagree. It could really go either way for me here. I'm open to finding some, or being shown some data that proves that wrong, and changing it to agree. But that's just kind of my gut instinct on it. Pornography depicting consenting adults should be legal for the adult population. Well, yeah, it should be legal, but for me, that's not really what the argument's about. It's just like the drug thing, right? Just because it's legal doesn't mean you should do it. I really am pretty anti-porn. I think it's really, really bad for people, especially kids. I think that I didn't care about it a few years ago, but I've seen a lot of studies on it recently that make it seem like it's probably bad. It's probably mostly bad, or pretty much all bad. And I would not want my children around it. I wouldn't want my family around it. I wouldn't want my friends to be consuming that material. And so yeah, in some of these I've gotten a lot more conservative, but in a lot of them like I said, I'm more socially conservative now. Let's see, what goes on in a private bedroom between consenting adults is of no business. I strongly agree with that. No one can feel naturally homosexual. I don't know what they mean by naturally. Like, born that way? I don't know. We just discussed the gay gene thing. That must, maybe, if they were talking about genetically, then I would say disagree or agree. But I don't know, if it turns out that homosexuality works kind of like how pedophilia does, where if the person, when they're a child, is affected by either, then it tends to be... I've seen some studies that say that maybe homosexuality is caused by abuse, right, in young children. And it's the same for pedophilia, but with sexual abuse. So I'm wondering... I mean, that's obviously not natural. So I guess, look, I'm just going to go agree, but it's the same as before. Like, I could kind of go either way. I'm just trying to talk myself through it and understand it better. These days, openness about sex has gone too far. I do agree. Just because it's gross. Like, a lot of these people are so crazy and gross. I don't want to know. I don't want to hear about it. Yeah, you can do whatever you want, right? But just shut up about it, dude. I don't want to see it. I don't want you to talk about it. I don't want to see it. Leave me alone, all right, finally we have the answer. All right, the starting point of the political compass was in 2001 when we recognized the inadequacies of the standard political measure, left to right. It's certainly fine for discussing economics, but to this day is still widely and wrongly used to describe social attitudes. All right, so let's just take a look. Look at that. Look at that, guys. Look at that. See? Is this mine? Oh, that's not mine. Here's mine. Oh, wait, no, where's mine? I understand how it works. Yeah, okay, there we go. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds about right. Oops. Let me see here. Screenshotting this. This is going on the X. That's so me. Well, there you go. Boom. All right, we did it, gang. I don't really need this cert. Well, thanks for watching this now hour-and-a-half long video about my politics and like general outline of what my beliefs are. If you want to see more, make sure that you subscribe here and check out my clips channels where I'll have more clips, maybe some more lighthearted stuff, and we can talk politics. If you ever want to get into debates, be sure to email me. My email is listed on my description. It is corbindauster@gmail.com. I'm looking for more people to chat with, more people to debate with. So thanks for watching. We appreciate you. And check out the description for all my socials. Take care. Bye-bye.